Hi, I'm Jim and I was retired. I'm back with another video on Boldin. It continues to be one of my favorite DIY retirement tools, and I'm following up on its beta efforts to add asset allocations. Now, in this week's video, let's ask, is Boldin Beta busted? It certainly is coming up with some strange numbers. Stay tuned. Now, I've done a number of videos on Boldin, including last week's, where I compared the asset allocation efforts that Boldin is using versus what I use in Quicken and my own spreadsheets. And I'm following up with that with a little bit more exploration into this Asset Allocation Explorer they're developing. In its release notes, it promises that this is going to track with your position level holdings and measure that against your risk tolerance score. If you haven't tried out the beta features, you should make sure that you've opted in and then go to the Allocations Explorer to see what I'm seeing. You first need to complete a 7-question survey, and these are very similar questions that you might be asked by your broker to establish your risk tolerance. The one thing you need to consider when you're answering these questions is your time frame. How soon do you need the money, and how long does it need to last? It also needs to know whether your investments are part of a bigger picture for your DIY retirement or if they're the whole enchilada. Equity, in my mind, is the best protection against inflation during the decades of your DIY retirement. And you also need to understand that equity can suffer short-term losses, and that's why I use my 3-bucket approach. You need to invest for the long haul. In my first decade of retirement, I've lived through the pandemic and the terrible 2022 year where both stocks and bonds were down. And by the way, I've also lived through the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis of 2008. You need to reflect how you responded in the past to those experiences in the marketplace. But you also have to answer the hard question of what happens the next time there's a large loss. When I answered the questions, Boldin said that my risk profile was moderately aggressive, with a sample asset allocation of 70-30, 70% stocks and 30% bonds. And I should expect a nominal return of 8.8%. Now, interestingly, where you are in savings and you can customize the returns you want for accounts, that's the account choice that I've made of 8.8%. And I've used that in most of my equity investment accounts. Answer a question or two differently, and you might end up with a moderate risk profile with a sample asset allocation of 60-40, with a slightly lower 8.08% nominal return. But when you go to the Asset Allocation Explorer, you start to see some different numbers. It says, with the risk profile that I have, and I kind of agree with that I can expect an 82% chance of success compared to my current 91% chance in my current plan, based on those moderately aggressive returns. What's going on? And if you click on the asset allocations over time, you start to see the problem. The Allocations Explorer for the moderate aggressive is clearly showing a 60-40 asset allocation. An aggressive model is one that's closer to a 70-30 allocation, and the moderate is closer to a 50-50 allocation. Hey, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you like these kinds of DIY retirement tips. I am not a professional. I'm not a Boldin employee. I am just an average DIY retiree sharing what I've learned with you so that it might help your DIY retirement. So, what about you? Have you used the beta features, and are you looking at this Allocations Explorer? Give me your results in the comments below. I'm going to continue to feed back my responses to Boldin. When I tried to do that with AI, it said talk to a human. So I may have to do that. It's clear that they need a continuity editor here in their beta program to track what makes sense. If I'm moderately aggressive and I expect a 70-30 portfolio, that's what it should show up in the Explorer as well, not a 60-40. There is something wrong there. It's a software team that's building this. They need some feedback from beta users, so be sure to give it to them. And apparently you need to do that in person and not the AI chat. So click on that, give some feedback to a human. Maybe through that effort, Boldin will come up with a great little feature that will help us in our DIY retirements. I want to emphasize that I am not a Boldin employee. I'm not in a market affiliate. I have no endorsement from Boldin. It's just a product that I've used from almost the very beginning when it was a little research project called New Retirement. And I've stayed with it and watched it mature. And I'm hoping that this beta bust starts to be fixed soon. As always, I'll close with my standard warning. I am not a professional. I have no initials after my name. So take these as entertaining ideas from one educated consumer to another. Always do your own due diligence and seek out a professional, a human professional, if you need one.